Welcome into another Untitled interview edition of the Untitled Film Project Podcast. Today, we're joined by Peter Facinelli. His acting career spans 30 years this year.
Wow.
This year, 30 years.
I feel old now. Yeah.
No.
I'm thinking about that. No, it's a good birthday. It's a good birthday. 30 years is a good time. Good stretch. Good stretch.
It's been a good run for sure. You've seen him on Nurse Jackie.
I hope for another 30. Another 30.
Starting. We're going to get to that. No, that's all. We're going to get to that. We've been on Nurse Jackie, the Twilight film series, of course, and my personal favorite, Can't Hardly Wait. And now he plays Preacher Rick in the new drama, The Unbreakable Boy. Peter, thank you so much for doing this. I really, really appreciate your time.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for having me on.
The Unbreakable Boy is a heartwarming story told through the eyes of a young autistic boy who also has brittle bone disease. How did you get involved in this specific project? How did it find you?
Well, it's a funny story, actually. My brother-in-law, his name is Leon, and he owns a pharmacy in New York called Pasture Pharmacy. And Scott LeRette, who wrote the book, walked into his pharmacy and was just chatting him up, saying, and Leon's a very, friendly guy, and they got to talking, and he told him that he wrote this book to my brother-in-law. My brother-in-law called me the next day. He said, "Hey, Pete, you should make this movie into a book. This guy walked into my story as a book. Sounds interesting." And that sounds, a lot easier said than done. So I was like, yeah, okay. Because I get that all the time. You should make this into a book. You should make this into
I'm sure.
And then, or a movie. And so he said, but he's come to LA. I told him that you would sit down with him. And I was kind of annoyed because I didn't know the guy. I didn't know what book it was. And I was like, thanks a lot. And so, but he told me enough about the story that I was like, well, I'll read it. I had no intention of really coming on board, just kind of like, I'll meet him and I'll steer him in the right direction because it was an interesting book. And it really hit me. It really resonated with me on a lot of levels, being a father myself and all the themes in the book being resilience and faith and hope and being present in the moment with your kids and life in general. And the authenticity that his son had of being true to himself and being just living joyous in the moment, And I thought, what a wonderful story. And I sat down with Scott and I just kind of was giving him, tidbits of what you could do with it and what you should do with it without any real agenda. He had two producers on, so I didn't want to step on their toes. And then those producers fell off. He said, well, it was like 6 months later, and he would call me like once a week. And he said, why don't you produce it with me? And I thought about it. I had so many things because I write and I direct and I produce. And I thought, I just don't know if I have enough bandwidth for this, but it's such a good story. So I took it on. I said, okay, I'll try, knowing that it's hard to get people to read a book in Hollywood. It's hard enough to get them to read a script, let alone a book. And so I gave it to my agents and 6 months later, I was like, hey, you ever read that book? And they were like, well, where'd you put it? I said, it's in your mailbox at your house. Oh, it is? Yeah. So, but every once in a while I'd have a meeting and I would bring it up and pitch it. And then we had this, one company that wanted to do it as a TV series, and they brought on this Oscar award-winning writer, and I thought, wow, this is amazing, and we thought we really hit gold there. We were high-fiving, and then the writer got a TV series, so we had to step off, and they were searching for another writer, and that company said, look, this might take like 6 months, a year, because we're busy with this TV show. We don't want to hold you up if you want it back. And I said to Scott, well, we could take it back or we could leave it with them, and just wait 6 months to a year. And I was really hoping he'd say, no, let's just go with them because it was a great company. And he said, look, he didn't know Hollywood. So he's like, well, let's take it back. And I thought to myself, man, I don't know if this is going to go because I had already exhausted a lot of places to bring it. And then I had a meeting with Kingdom Films shortly after, and I pitched it to them, and they really got it. They really understood what the story and the book, and they wanted to do it. And the rest is history. They kind of put the wind in the sails, and it happened fairly quickly after that because I did a deal with them in like March or April, and then by October we were filming, and it never happens that fast. So I kind of felt like the universe was steering this from that get-go on. And when I look back, it's just such a beautiful journey that I had with Scott because kind of reminds me of like The Alchemist, how you go through all these twists and turns, and sometimes you end up over here and you don't know if that's where you're supposed to be, and you get knocked back five steps, but I'm here because all those things had to align, and the timing of it had to happen for the movie to get made when it did, for me to sit here to talk to you, for it to come out February 21st. So I feel like it's all about the timing, and I feel like it's a good time for this movie to come out because it's such a beautiful, inspirational story, and I feel like the world needs it. So I'm really proud of this movie and how it came together, how I was able to shepherd it to studio and even being released wide and theatrically. Like that's hard, unless you're a Marvel film. It's hard to get it's hard to get theatrical these days. But I feel like this is such a movie, such a great movie to see in a theater because it's a communal experience. I mean, you could watch this movie by yourself and it'd be great. And you could watch it with your family on the couch and you'll feel really great. But watching it in a theater and you're going to hear people laughing and people crying. And then, that energy of love is just swirling in that theater. I really, it's magical. And I hope people go to the theaters to see it.
Just like a comedy that's contagious in the theaters.
Yeah, it's very contagious.
With this, for sure.
Yeah.
So yeah, I do hope people go see it in theaters. You mentioned that it kind of came together lightning fast. What has not come together lightning fast is the release, right? So you finished in, I think it was fall or maybe winter of 2020. What's it like for a veteran actor like yourself to wait almost 5 years between wrap and release?
Well, the movie was filmed during COVID. We were the only studio film shooting in the US. There was Mission Impossible shooting abroad and then our film, which I felt very lucky to be, nobody was filming anything and my little movie was being made. And so we did it with, protocol and COVID protocol and nobody got sick, thankfully. And we were very careful. And so, we had a lot of obstacles while we were filming with the COVID and then when we finished filming. But again, one of the themes of this movie is just resilience and having faith. And I never wavered. I mean, Scott sometimes would be like, the release got pushed because they had it going out in theaters. There were posters up. I was so excited. It was 2022, and then this wave of COVID came and all the theaters got shut down. And so to Lionsgate credit, they didn't want to waste it. They didn't want to put it out there at a time when nobody was in theaters because they were like, we believe in this film. So they pulled it. It sat for a minute. And then they were trying to figure out when to release it because, it's all timing. But I really believe, and I told this to Scott, I think it was supposed to come out right now. And so sometimes, you have a movie that like our journey, all these things had to happen for it to come out at a specific time. And right now, the world needs it more than ever, especially with the LA fires going on and people losing their homes. And it's just a message of like family and resilience and love and community being there for each other. And so, look, movies like this, I'm really impressed by it because there's a rawness to it. It feels, and because it's based on a true story, there's a realness and a rawness to it that never feels sappy or gets too melancholy. It's just like this beautiful journey. And one of the beautiful things about Scott is he was able to, whenever he had these moments of like where he was at his lowest, he was able to like either find a comedy in it or bounce back, and even when he hit his rock bottom, many people would have crumbled, but he found faith in that and was able to come back and his family's together still to this day. That's a beautiful thing.
It's amazing for sure. And I loved the movie myself. I thought it was really great. I thought it was a look at not just the autistic boy, obviously, which is the marketing angle, if you will, but it's a snapshot to family. But before I let you go, because I have to take this opportunity, right? As a huge Can't Hardly Wait fan, I have to ask, where would Mike Dexter, what would he be doing right now? Has he figured it all out? Is he an upstanding member of the community or is he more of an Al Bundy type?
It's probably I don't know, single somewhere in an apartment, staring at the ceiling, running where his life went wrong. And I'll tell you where it went wrong, Mike Dexter, when you let Amanda go. You never should let Amanda go.
That's true. That's true. Peter Facinelli has been our guest here on the Untitled Film Project Podcast. I had to squeak that question in. Peter, I cannot thank you enough for your time, man. Thank you so much, and best of luck with this movie. It is truly great. It's a super watch for families of all kinds, really adults of all kinds, because again, to me, it speaks more to growing up and how to conduct yourself in a family environment as opposed to anything else.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for listening to the Untitled Film Project Podcast. To support the show, please rate, review, follow, and subscribe. Original music by Jeremy Schwartz. Special thanks to the Music City Film Critics Association. Editing and post-production by Jeremy K. Gover. Voiceover by Chad Bennett.